अस्सलाम वालेकुम सर।
वालेकुम अस्सलाम सफदर।
शेवनिंग स्कॉलरशिप और ये सब है। हाँ हाँ, शेवनिंग ये अलग होता है।
वालेकुम सफदर।
वालेकुम अस्सलाम सर।
अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
वालेकुम अस्सलाम प्रोफेसर साहब, कैसे हैं आप?
बस अल्लाह का फजल है सर, अल्लाह का फजल है सर।
Our speaker is also here.
या certainly sir.
Hello, just checking if you can hear me.
Nabeel, assalamu alaikum. Yes, I can hear you, Nabeel, clearly.
Okay, welcome, salam. Thank you.
वालेकुम सलाम।
All right. So I had prepared a few slides. I just wanted to know how you'd like to show it. Should I email it to someone, or should I just try to share my screen?
Yeah, so I think best if you share your screen. Let's wait a little bit. I think typically students take their sweet time to join the session. So 5 minute ठहरना बेहतर रहेगा. And then we
I just
can.
wanted to see if you can see it properly. That's it. Is it visible?
Yeah, but you're using a phone, Nabeel. Maybe desktop or a laptop might be a better option.
Okay. Okay. How about I send it to you, and it is just a 3-4 slider. It's not
Okay.
nothing much. Unmute.
So, Safdar, can you handle it or?
Yes sir, I'll handle it.
Okay. You have a good connection, right?
Yes sir, yes sir.
Okay. So you send it to me, I will send it to Safdar.
Sir, I have put down the my email ID. If you
Acha.
can send it to the email ID itself. It's in the chat box, sir.
Okay.
Dr. Razi, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, Dr. Ansari. I'm actually on the phone today, so I won't be able to do odd video.
जी जी
calling from a different place, but I thought I'd listen in.
जी जी जरूर हाँ Nabeel, if you can send me the presentation also just as an additional layer of protection.
Sure, I'll.
WhatsApp पे भेज दीजिए अगर I can download it from there.
Okay. Okay. Just send it to you.
Yeah, I will just take it. Yeah, great. So let me just download it and keep it here just in case.
Yeah. I couldn't get Safdar's email, so if you can.
Yeah, I will forward it to him right now. So
Thank you.
Safdar, I forwarded it to you. You should get it by now.
हमेशा तो हारी है मुंबई इंडियंस से क्या?
So, Nabeel Saab, 2 students have volunteered to introduce you. So, the typical way in which we do this is a couple of students or one student introduces you before you begin. And then once you present, we try to make this as interactive as possible. And we try to take questions from the students so you can make it into a conversation of some sort.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. A couple of minutes and then we will begin, inshallah.
Okay.
Who's Safdar, who's going to introduce? Is Noman going to introduce?
Noman is.
Yes, sir. I and Salman. Salman starts first.
Perfect. Okay. So great. So I think we should start. Why don't you guys take over from here? Okay.
Just a second, sir.
Sure, sir. Salman, you can start now.
Okay. Am I audible?
Yes, you
Yeah.
are.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum and good evening to all. First of all, very warm welcome to all of you to attend this session. And for today's session, I and my friend Noman are moderators. I would like to introduce myself, but before that, I would like to thank SETI Foundation for organizing this event. I'm Salman Ansari. I have done civil engineering. Now I am pursuing MBA from Jamia. Today's program is based on career in risk and compliance management. Mentor of this program is Nabeel Siddiqui, who has done masters in strategy analytics and management from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, USA. He has also done MBA, HEC School of Management from France, and BTech in Computer Science and Engineering, PES University from India. Nabeel Siddiqui is Associate Partner, Insurance Sector, Hybrid Cloud Services at IBM, New York. He has more than 18 years of experience in application, digital transformation across sectors and business domains, particularly in insurance. Prior to joining back IBM, he was Senior Director of FSI and US Public Sector Application Services Solutions at NTT Data. Before that, he worked at Alcatel Lucent as lead engineer. During his tenure as an engineer at Bell Labs, he filed 3 patents in the field of data security, still applicable to various industry sectors. He is also a Google certified professional cloud architect and Scrum Alliance certified product owner. Very pleasure to have you here, sir. Now, I would like to hand over the session to the Nabeel Siddiqui. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction. So today's session is about careers in risk and compliance management. I had sent over the slides over to some of your colleagues so that they can present while I speak. But I want it to be much more interactive. It's not just going over some of the slides and kind of helping you out, but also to answer any question that you may have with respect to governance, risk, and compliance related careers. So in summary, I just wanted to highlight why I chose this topic before I proceed. The reason for this topic is because this topic cuts across multiple career path. So if you have a career path in finance and accounting, you can still do governance, risk, and compliance. If you have a career path in IT, in project management or IT, you can still adopt this. And if you have a career path in something which is quantitative, like BCom, MCom, etc., you can still go ahead and adopt this. So it kind of cuts across multiple career lines, and anybody who has expertise in one or part of risk and compliance management can join this. One other thing is, if anybody, which I'm not so sure, if anybody has background in law, can also adopt this kind of career path. So that's the reason why I chose this, because it is much more broad and can help people in various stages of their career. So in order to start, I would like to, I don't know whether the screen has been shared or not, but then feel free to pause me anytime and ask any questions, right? These slides that I have shared with the professor and other items that you'll be seeing following through are just to kind of level set so that everybody has a common understanding, and then we can begin to talk about other things, right? And answer questions. So what is GRC? What is governance, risk, and compliance management? So every organization, every enterprise faces some or the other kind of risk, right? Be it market risk, credit risk, operational risk, any kind of risk, right? And if the organization fails to recognize and plan for those risks, then it will be the end of the enterprise, because any particular risk can bring significant damage to an enterprise and can bring it down. So so the job of governance, risk, and compliance manager or executive is to make sure that that risk is identified well ahead of time and mitigated, right? Mitigation is much more important, and based on your knowledge and know-how in any particular field, any particular process operation that you belong to, you will be able to avoid that risk for your enterprise. Now, this has become a full-fledged field wherein people from various backgrounds, just like I explained to you, various backgrounds are adopting governance, risk, and compliance practices, getting certified because there's no particular degree in this kind of a field. But if you have the knowledge, if you have the understanding of what is going on in a particular enterprise and trying to keep it risk averse, you can adopt this career. So I have a few, broad categories on this slide that you might be seeing. It's about the market risk, credit risk, operational risk, compliance risk, and reputational risk. So these are the four or five major risk categories, but there are many other risk categories as we go along. This field is not much explored as of now, but we want to make sure that we can create a lot of resource and kind of knowledge base in this field. And India being, an IT hub of the world, it is very important for us to kind of go ahead and get a fair share of knowledge in this space, right? So, without going into a lot of details, I would say that if anybody has a finance background, they can definitely relate to something like market risk or credit risk. If anybody has an IT background, they can definitely relate to operational risk. And if anybody has a law background, they can definitely relate to compliance risk. And if anybody has a marketing background, they can always relate to reputational risk. So, so all of these fields come together on this career path, which is extremely important for an enterprise to survive. So I'll pause. If there are any questions, feel free to ask them. No problem. Moving forward, as you adopt this career path, the first question that you should ask is how to be good at it. Because there's no use adopting a career path when you're not even good at it or you don't even know how to get better at it, right? So what I would say as a piece of advice is if you have an understanding of how compliance and risk management differ, and how you bring both of them together, that will create, an impact for your enterprise. The reason is that if you are able to bring together avoiding risk and creating value in one go, then you are a very good risk and compliance manager. And the reason I say this is because compliance is a set of rules that is set across for you, such as Sarbanes-Oxley or HIPAA compliance, or it could be any other like a GDPR compliance. All of these compliance are kind of set across for you to be compliant on, right? So you should be aware of these rules and regulations that are out there. Otherwise, the penalty could be pretty big for an enterprise. But apart from that, you also need to have an outlook into what are the risks facing your enterprise that you can convert into a value proposition for your customers. And that's where the difference is. So rules and regulations, just merely following those rules and regulations are not going to just make you a notch ahead in the competition. What will set you apart is anything that you are going to work on for creating value for your enterprise in the realm of risk management. So I'll give you an example. So for example, you have to comply with NIST standards. NIST is security related standard that is set across for every enterprise to follow for data protection, right? So just to give you an example. Now, moving forward, what happens is that if you create a manageable automated business process that brings in this compliance idea, this compliance regulation within itself and propagate it to your customers, that's when you create value. So in order to give you a tangible example, for example, let's take an example of Google Cloud. Google Cloud and all the other cloud services providers have a lot of risk out there. Why? Because they're taking care of transactional data, they're taking care of static data, they're taking care of all sorts of data. They are hosting it, they are encrypting it, they are making it transfer from one place to another, etc. So there's a lot of risk that Google Cloud or any other cloud provider has. And how do they make it secure is the value and what they have done, what the enterprise has done is they have converted all of that regulation into a value proposition. They're saying that, hey, enterprises, you come and put your data on our cloud and we'll protect it, we'll encrypt it, we'll do all sorts of compliance, all sorts of risk management, and you have to do nothing. You just have to provide us the data and pay us on a monthly or timely basis. So that's the value proposition created on top of the compliance risk, right? And there are various other organizations who do similar or the other things. For example, if you're in marketing, you can relate to it from a brand reputation management perspective, right? There are various organizations who just say that you leave it all to us. We take care of your campaign. We'll limit it to the regulations and we'll bring your brand out to the market. So that's the way to be good at it. You don't have to just follow the rules. You also have to identify the risk. You have to mitigate those and also turn it into value proposition for the market. I have included a case study of Stanley Steamers on the slide. Feel free to go through it. I won't go into details about that, but they have done the same thing, which I just gave you an example about. Moving to slide number 4, I wanted to inform everybody about some of the certifications. You might already know about these certifications. These are kind of very widespread, certifications in this particular field. And depending on your knowledge base, I would highly recommend going through the material. At least if you're not getting certified, going through the material so that it'll give you a solid basis of applying to jobs related to governance, risk, and compliance. So that's all I had. I think we have sufficient time for any level of Q&A that you want to get into. Thank you.
Okay. So guys, you can start asking your questions. They could be relating to how to get into this sort of a career stream. It could be relating to your own interests if you're talking about marketing, or if you have interest in finance, if you have a law background, etc. So, just jump in and ask your questions. I also want to sensitize Nabeel to the fact that we have a couple of professors also from Jamia as part of this group here today. And they may also have some questions or comments that they may want to make.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So we have a question in the chat box. It says, where in the organization chart compliance manager is situated? This is asked by Faizan Khan.
Got it. So in the organization chart, it depends on the organization. If an organization is highly regulated, for example, insurance. Insurance is highly regulated industry, so you will have a separate division of it, and you might look into any insurance organization. They have a chief risk and compliance officer. They call it CRO or they call it CRCO, but that's there. right? Then if you have, it's not in insurance industry, if it is an IT industry, you definitely have a CIO. And the CIO's job is definitely to look out for these kind of risks and kind of mitigate them. Then if you look at retail and others, then for example, just take about retail. Retail has PCI compliance in play. They definitely need to be compliant on that field, and also any kind of finance related. So you have a CFO kind of playing that role. So wherein the organization overall, it's very relevant in today's world. Every organizations, all the C levels have to mitigate risk at some point or the other, and kind of eh, actually do it on a daily basis. So they have separate organizations related to it if they need to have, if they are faced with significant regulations, or if they're not, then they definitely have it tucked in finance or tucked within IT.
So at an entry level, Nabeel, what sort of, how does one sort of, think about this particular area? Because
At an
many of
entry,
many of the students, many of the students here are basically freshers in the sense that they haven't, worked extensively in organizations before coming for their MBA. So one of the challenges is to sort of, think about the nature of the opportunities that exist at the very entry level situation in some sense.
sure, sure. So at an entry level, you can look for organizations which are strategy consulting organizations, and and also the big four accounting firms. The reason I say accounting, because accounting firms are mostly the auditors, and apart from risk management, you will have to be tasked with auditing. Auditing is part and parcel of risk management. So PwCs of the world and Deloitte and McKinsey, Bain, BCG, all of these organizations have risk and compliance management practices, and they are recruiting for analysts in that field. Including firms like IBM, we have open positions for risk analysts who can come in, and the career trajectory kind of starts with analyst or associate, and then goes all the way up to the chief officers in that relevant field. So um, so I would say that look for, if you're looking for a big four accounting firms, definitely this is a relevant field to get highlighted, because every other field kind of is, if you think that it's becoming commoditized, then this is a field wherein you can create a difference.
Okay. And you would suggest, Nabeel, for somebody interested in this area to start off with these certifications, or do you suggest that maybe they should focus on one particular vertical and like health or IT, depending upon their backgrounds and interest, and then look for something to do there?
So I would recommend that, as if you're just getting started, certifications is very good, but a knowledge of compliance is even better. So I know that certifications is kind of just bringing it forward to the world, saying that you are certified, but you might not be ready to be certified given that you do not have a lot of experience. In that case, you should look for the standards and regulations within your particular area of work. For example, if you are a software developer, I would highly urge you, or were software developer in the past, now doing MBA, I highly urge you to get into reading about any kind of security or compliance related things for data protection. If you're eyeing for IT firms, if you're eyeing for investment banking or any kind of banking transaction related job, then definitely look into Sarbanes-Oxley and other kind of compliance or related work, right? And once you are aware of that, do include that in your resume, because most of these organizations want to find out if you can somehow set yourself apart from your peers. And if you have these the knowledge of these standards and compliance rules and regulations, it'll set you apart. And believe me or not, it's very easy to even get certified in one of these. There are scores of certification providers who just go ahead and certify you on HIPAA compliance. For example, if you want to get into healthcare, right? So, and or GDPR if you want to take care of any kind of data transaction. So go ahead and read this out. You can get yourself certified in these particular areas, but then after that, after you have gained some experience in all of this, then go ahead and get the CISM or the C-Risk kind of certifications, which are kind of showcasing that you not only have the experience, but you also have worked in this field and can create real value for wherever you join.
There are some questions, I think somebody wants to, yeah.
Yeah, there are some questions. Like Daniel Ashraf is asking, the first part, sir has already explained, but there's another part that is asking about challenges. So Nabeel, sir, what are the challenges one gets in his initial days?
Nabeel, you are muted, Nabeel.
What are the challenges people usually face?
So the challenges that people usually face when they get in is they don't have the knowledge of the technology which is used in order to do the risk management practice. Like, every organization has a different set of technology to kind of go after it. And they create an inventory, they do self-assessments of risk, and kind of create controls to mitigate those risks. And they use various technologies. So the first challenge you might face as a newbie is how to learn those technologies and kind of get trained on it so that you are proficient in it. I would recommend looking at ARIS. ARIS is one of the leading brands. Most of the organizations who are serious about risk and compliance management, they use this technology. And this platform is kind of very easy to learn and go forward and bring on risk and compliance world. So ARIS, also called as ARIS.
So like, how does one get access to this, Nabeel?
So ARIS, as a students, you might have access from ARIS first as the corporate account might give some licenses out. Otherwise, there are, like I would say, some people might have put across some YouTube videos to have a look at it, or in Udemy, if you can find out. For me, what happened is that I didn't have to get through all of that. I was already given an access, and I was lucky enough to be one of the first people to get to know the technology and kind of get onboarded. So, but there's no like, I think every organization which is very serious about this, they will definitely make a point that you get trained on it and you get better on it. Then you kind of set your path on risk and compliance management.
Okay.
So they will anyway train you.
Other questions?
Nabeel, this is Nazneen. I was wondering if there are internships, or is there a stepping stone to get to these careers? In fact, to me, I would ask the question whether there's a requirement to have experience before you can get certified, or can anyone study for the certification and, as you said, get some of these certifications because that shows an interest in the profession?
I would say it's definitely, if you can go ahead and get certified, there is no problem with that. Definitely go ahead and do it. Some of the certifications need 1 or 2 years of experience, but that's not much because you can still get a background in it. For example, if you have worked in IT as a developer before, you know most of the ways how an IT enterprise works, right? So what this training is looking for, what this certification is looking for, that you have that kind of relevant experience and you can relate to it. Once you relate to it, it's very easy for you to see where they are coming from, what's the framework, and how to go about it. Regarding internships, yes, there are internships in risk and compliance management. I would, if you are really serious about this, I would say any of the big four have that. But apart from that, there are many other competitors who are getting in this field. Reaching out to them would also show, and I think they broadly advertise any kind of internship. I would highly recommend to go into an organization that is even a boutique organization that specializes in this field initially, so that once you have set your career path, once you have kind of understood how this field works, then you can join any other big organization. Don't look for big four as your as your only solace. I would say go forward with boutique firms who are specializing, so that you can get very pointed relevant experience.
Okay. Sheikh Abdullah Alim has a question. Why don't you unmute yourselves and ask? Alim.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Sir, my interest is in finance and strategic risk mitigation. For that, one of my seniors have suggested doing FRM, financial risk management course, and uh, he has also suggested doing data analytics courses, both of which I am pursuing along with my MBA. Can you tell me if there is something more that I should add to my portfolio to get into this industry?
I think to just get into the industry, FRM and data analytics is enough. I would suggest that even FRM is more than enough to just get in the industry. Data analytics is definitely part and parcel of trying to um, get into this field and understand analytics and metrics much better. But FRM will anyway bring all of that under your belt.
Thank you, sir.
Safdar, if you can stop, do you need the presentation to be on, Nabeel, or can we stop sharing?
No, please stop sharing. I just wanted to make sure everybody's on the same page.
This way, we'll have a wider canvas to look at people when they ask questions, etc. Easier to deal with. Other questions, please.
We have another question also in the chat box. This is asked by Labib Ahmed. He's asking where can we have more learning in R&C in an industry or a consulting firm?
I didn't get the question. Is it which industry?
No. So the question is, where will you get more experience in risk and compliance, either in a consulting firm or in any industry? I don't know what industry is, but I guess any other company apart from consulting firms.
Yeah, definitely. So the highest level of experience that you can get, apart from getting into consulting firm, is within the insurance industry, because that is highly regulated, and they have a definite risk and compliance management practice. Apart from that would be banking. Banking is the next highly regulated organization or industry. And then apart from that, you can, I don't think that anything else, like I would say investment banking could be one of those, but that's related to insurance as well. So these are the two fields. I think
healthcare would be relevant, right, Nabeel?
Healthcare, yes, from a HIPAA compliance, etc. standpoint, yes, healthcare would be healthcare from a data management standpoint.
Other questions, keep on asking whatever question comes to mind. See, it is very difficult to get somebody as senior as Nabeel Siddiqui with such a wide range of experiences in the world. So, ask questions either related to this talk or anything else that you think, you can learn from him.
Okay, so I have a question. So am I audible?
Yes. Yep. Muhammad Safir is the one asking the question. Yes, Safir.
Yes, sir. So my question is like, if somebody wants to go into the investment banking, so how would risk and compliance would help in making a career into this industry, and what kind of support base would this provide?
So risk and compliance in the realm of investment banking comes in two ways. One is with respect to what I talked about, insurance. And some people just think that, okay, insurance is a policy. You create you buy a policy with a premium, and then you have the money. When anything happens, the insurance company returns it back. No, but then the background, what happens is that the insurance company takes that money and invests it somewhere else. That's where investment banking comes in, right? And they try to get a higher return on that investment so that they mitigate the risk of something drastic happening in the market and they're still afloat. For example, just the pandemic happened. Everybody got into a similar kind of situation. Anybody who had that premium covered, a policy covered, they went forward and claimed, right? And whoever got it, like the scores of people who got it, and as a result of it, the insurance provider had to make sure that they were afloat. Otherwise, everything that they had would have, like all the premium that they had collected, would have been gone. So to answer your question, investment banking definitely has very tight relations to wherever you have a lot of money held in the bank, right? Especially for the insurance firms. Now, how is insurance? Like I think the second part of your question was, how is risk and compliance going to help me get into investment banking? If you have risk and compliance experience, you will be able to use the risk management part of that experience in making sound investment decisions, right? If you are in investment banking from an investor standpoint. If not, then you might, if you're in an analyst standpoint, still you might have to compare organizations, and usually these organizations might be fairly new to the market. And in order to analyze the risk with these organizations, you might need to understand risk management and also whether or not they are adhering to any kind of compliance. If they are not, then you can advise them so that they are ahead of the market.
Right. Yes, keep the questions coming. Yes.
So I have just a follow-up on this. So I was like saying that the risk and compliance part would come in handy in a situation like what happened in 2008 financial crisis. So if somebody is like have a fair good enough knowledge of risk and compliance, and he's working in core investment banking, would that help like build a stronger point of view, or a stronger portfolio for that person or the firm which is doing much more in terms of risk and compliance for the investment banking?
Yes, definitely.
Other questions, guys? and girls. I'm sure there are many people here who are doing banking as a specialization. Do you have any questions? Okay. While you guys are thinking about your questions, let me, take this opportunity to, move it in a slightly different direction. If Nabeel is okay with that, so just want to
Hello, sir.
highlight. Who has a question? Yes.
Yes, sir. We haven't talked about governance yet in GCM. What is that?
So governance is kind of tightly related to the entire process of risk and compliance. So governance is it could be, if you look at from a IT standpoint, it is about data governance, making sure that whoever is supposed to have that information gets that information, and whoever is not supposed to have that information doesn't even doesn't even look at that information, doesn't even have access to that information. So governance is part and parcel of risk as well as compliance. Part of, to give you an example, in the real world, GDPR is a data governance compliance rule, but maybe as a risk manager, you can implement this particular GDPR related thing as a value add for your business by making sure that your customers, if you are a provider, making sure that your customers can see it not just as an organization following the compliance work, but also creating value for your customers.
So
So
Nabil, just to, just one, sorry to interject, but maybe they don't know what GDPR is. So if you can just, some of them may not know. So if you can just explain briefly and then continue.
sure, GDPR was kind of even less than a decade ago, uh, came out in Europe, and this is a data governance requirement set out in Europe. And the premise of GDPR was that data belonging to the citizens of any particular country should only reside in that country. And the reason that it came out in the European Union was primarily because if you look at Europe as so many countries in in just a span of 100 miles. So about 100 miles or 200 miles, you can maybe cut across 5-6 countries. So that is the reason why this was brought up. Secondly, the reason was that most of the cloud providers are based out of US. All I would say all top 5 cloud providers are based out of US. So it also creates a competitive risk for the European Union, because if all the data belonging to the population of European Union resides in US, then it's a big risk for European Union. So they wanted to make sure that this is followed, and that's when GDPR was brought in. It's called Global Data Protection Regulation.
And then
So,
how does that impact, say, businesses in India?
so in India, it impacts in various ways. For example, if you are a multinational organization and you have businesses in Netherlands, or you have business in France, Germany, and you have customers there, right? Most of the organizations want to make sure that they have a unified view of a customer. So that they can upsell, cross-sell, make sure they understand the customer well, and kind of strategize based on all of that. And they have their chief data officers or chief strategy officers located in one country, which is India. So what happens is that you funnel in all of the data from European countries where you have business into India, and then they make a decision based on what they see. And that's not what they want. They want that you should have people within the organization in that particular country looking at that data. And if at the top level they want to make a decision, they can definitely make a decision, but then they should have people who are looking at the data, analyzing the data within the same country. So that, yeah, the chief strategy officer who's based in India only gets a summary view, and it doesn't have any kind of PII. PII is personally identifying information. So if you do not have any PII, you can always build strategies and kind of bring something new to the market. But the PII is also a cause of concern, which is tightly related to GDPR.
So I guess that would imply that, any outsourcing that happens has to be done differently then.
Yes, and most organizations are complying to PII and GDPR. Whoever is multinational, they have to comply. If they are caught not doing that, then there are high penalties.
Other questions?
Basically, there is one more question which is asked by Dr. Tawfiq. Our few students are interested in PhD after MBA Finance from USA. What would you suggest? This is question which.
So can the person who asked the question ask it himself? Dr. Tawfiq, can you? Tawfiq, I guess, I don't know. Tawfiq, sir. Yeah. Okay, I guess. Okay, let me just repeat the question.
Yes, sir.
आप पूछ लीजिए.
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Dr. Tawfiq Ahmed, I am assistant professor here in Center for Management Studies, Jamia Islamia. So my question was, our several students have interest. They want to do PhD after MBA Finance, or even some research scholars are there who wants to pursue PDF after research, after PhD. So what would you suggest to them?
In this area?
In this area? Yeah, there is significant research being done. I would suggest, if you are, and this is not, common knowledge. So anybody who's seeking out to be a PhD, comes from a finance background, definitely has a very bright prospect in governance, risk, and compliance. The reason is that, including governments, everybody depends on them to make laws and rules and regulations. So I would say that is, if you're looking for universities for that, advice, then I would say look for top finance related universities like Wharton. They definitely have those kind of courses. And if you're looking for finance in general from an accounting perspective, then I would suggest that from an accounting perspective, it's much more commoditized, because those rules are already in place, and in order to change or bring about a new rule, it creates a lot of havoc in the enterprise world. So I would not suggest that a PhD in accounting field would help from a GDPR, from a GRC perspective. But definitely from a law and regulation perspective, it makes sense.
Other questions, please?
Thank you, sir.
You're most welcome.
So let me ask, okay, there's something from Muhammad Kamran Ali. Does having let me just, Kamran, do you want to ask it yourself?
Okay, sir. Okay. If we have a certification in high stakes leadership, like leadership in crisis, will our resume stand out for risk management also? Like
leadership in
as sir told us about governance, we have to aware our prospects about all the things. So I think this certification will help us in that.
So Kamran, I guess if you interpret Kamran's question broadly, he is trying to figure out what other types of activities in your profile could make you a better candidate for risk and compliance jobs.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So yeah, definitely. So apart, like I just talked about operational risk in my slide. So in the operational risk realm, there is definitely personal risk or physical risk component in every organization that the enterprise has to take care of, right? That is access to premise, making sure that nothing goes out, which is kind of sensitive information data outside of outside of the organization in paper form, in physical form, right? Or in semi paper form, as in kind of a disk or anything related to like a pen drive or anything like that. So that is kind of sensitive data protection. You can definitely bring that parallel in for any requirement that is of that perspective, like building a process around that, making sure that that process is controlled properly, etc. But usually just that component doesn't come in alone. You need to have much more in-depth knowledge. So to answer your question, yes, that will help, but will not be sufficient.
Muhammad Talha has his hand up.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So what I wanted to know is that I was looking regarding the certifications which you mentioned, and what I can just figure it out that these required ample time, cost, as well as work experience. So for a beginners like us, do you recommend us to start directly with these certifications, or is there anything else which we can start as a scratch?
No, in the beginning of our presentation, I answered one of the questions that as a beginner level, I would say do not go ahead and do these certifications. Work out on the compliance and regulations, because compliance and regulation knowledge is important, and make a note of that on your resume so that you stand out. Once you get into the organization, and understand their risk and compliance appetite, they will themselves train you if you turn out to be one of those resources who can help out, right? So I would say if you are getting into finance, definitely one person raised the FMR, the other one said about getting a CPA or Sarbanes-Oxley understanding. And secondly, if you're getting into healthcare, HIPAA is definitely needed. If you're getting into any kind of data protection or data intensive job, definitely GDPR is needed. NIST if you want to get into cybersecurity, and ITIL if you are just if you're a developer, you definitely need to have an ITIL kind of or CompTIA experience, all of that. So I would say focus on at an entry level, focus on the regulations, try to get an understanding of that, and then get these certifications once you have a little bit of experience.
Perfect. So I guess just to add to that, if you are looking for jobs and suppose you are targeting healthcare, for example, or maybe you are targeting getting into IT related companies, then maybe you should sort of, try to understand some aspect of compliance and risk in that particular vertical. Put it on your resume as one of your interests. And at the very least, it will result in interesting interview question, which you would be able to answer. It can also make you stand out from, others who may not have thought about this particular thing. So it may get you noticed before the interview, and it could help you in the interview if you indeed have knowledge. Of course, you don't want to put something on your resume if you really don't have any knowledge of it. So, but this could be one way to differentiate yourselves from others. And you do it only if this type of stuff interests you, obviously. You don't do it just because, you heard this talk. But definitely this opens up a new world that you may want to explore.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much.
Other questions? Okay. Okay, let me take a segue, Nabeel, for a few minutes. So I want to tell the students that this is an opportunity for you to interact with Nabeel and learn from his experiences. So Nabeel, I was thinking maybe a few minutes in your own words about your journey and how you, so your journey has been long and very interesting. You have done a number of things in your life, starting from your engineering. One of the things that we try to accomplish here is to bring role models like you in front of students. Even though they are freshers, they're looking for their first job. They need to appreciate that life takes many turns, and many good things are possible. So they might learn from your journey, and this might stimulate some questions. So if you can just highlight some critical points in your life, and what sort of skills did you work on, and how did you sort of achieve success in life?
So just to summarize, I would say that everybody should have a dream so that you can achieve, but also be flexible, right? Because life will never turn out to be the way you expected, and always be flexible to adopt new things. Just like my father said, you should listen to everyone, but do your own thing, right? So you should not just go forward and take somebody's word for it and go forward and change your life accordingly, or kind of just push yourself through so that you fit to somebody else's idea of success, right? So I would suggest you're still successful. You're already successful. You've made it here. Everybody, each one of you is already successful. You don't have to do anything more to be successful other than just be thankful for where you are, and also keep working on what you love and what you like to move forward. Right? So that's number one that you should definitely look for. Secondly, I would suggest never get demoralized if you lose, or if you do not get something, or if you are not able to get where you want to get, right? So if there's always course correction, even the most successful person in this world has done course correction, right? Even the most successful organization in this world has done restructuring of their finance, has gone through bad phases, right? So it's not that if you are faced with any kind of failure, if you are faced with a setback, then that's the end of it, right? So it never feel like that, never feel that one door has closed, so that's the end of it. No, if one door has closed, Allah has opened thousands of doors for you. You can go through any door and make a life for yourself. So always be positive, right? In fact, I was known for being ultra positive. So always be positive, right? And never think about any setback to be just a setback for the entire career or life. To give you an example, from my own life experience, there have been multiple setbacks. It's not that, like, everything was rosy and everything was extremely perfect so that I could get through. It was, but what you have to do is make choices that work best for you, and then, given the circumstances, make decisions and move forward. You should always have your head above your shoulder, and if you are faced with any kind of adversity, you should not take it too hard. The reason is that because time will definitely heal that, and secondly, life is too short to be holding on to some setback and then repenting about it, rather than moving on and exploring new ideas, new things. Just to let you know, like I was just started about my personal experience. I was not a very bright student. I like uh, like for example, I was all the way up to my 10th grade. I was not very bright. I used to work hard. My parents used to say that you work hard, but you're not bright. So I was not very intelligent or, like, top of the class and stuff like that. But then uh, after you get what you love or what you want to do in your life, you go forward and you go get it, right? Your brain will open up, everything will start working for you, right? And it's the attitude that matters. And apart from the attitude, it's like making peace with what you are not. That's also very important. I am not a scientist, right? So, and I made peace with it, right? I'm not a scientist, I am not a scientist material, and I made peace with it. Just, and similarly, you might have certain things in your dream that you make peace with, saying that, okay, I'm not that, let's change the course and move forward. So that's how I would say you move forward. You're already successful, and you just have to get a break and prove to be more successful.
Thank you very much, Nabil. That was very inspiring. So, just any questions based on that? Does anybody have any? You can open up. This is a safe environment for you to ask anything. So, also gives you an opportunity to talk.
Yeah, go ahead. I would say one thing that I've learned is no question is a stupid question. Every question is equally important. So go ahead and you can ask any question.
Sir, I have a question.
हाँ सब द हाँ ठीक है चलिए शुरू कीजिए.
So when I passed out of my BTech, I did my BTech in mechanical engineering, and I was working in Gurgaon. So I also appeared in EY for security analyst post, and one of my friend gave me a referral to the interview session. So during the interviewer was much more focused upon that my background is from mechanical and not from the CS background. So, is this job profile strictly based to the students who are from CS and IT sector, from the engineering background, and not for mechanical or any other domain?
So if you're talking about cybersecurity in general, uh, it requires a little bit of experience, definitely in-depth experience in systems. I think that would have been the reason why there was a concern. But I've seen many people with mechanical background doing extremely well in information technology. So that's not a generalization. Um, so in order to back it up, you can always, so if you have an interest in cybersecurity, you can always go forward for some certifications that will back up your interest. I think what the interview was looking for, are you really interested in this? Or is it, something that you just found an opening for, and they have a requirement, so they just get you in. So in this kind of situation, always opt for certifications, just so that it proves the point, and you don't have to talk about it and saying that you come in from a mechanical background, but then you have these certifications to prove your interest and expertise.
Yeah, all right, sir. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, I have another question, Nabeel. Just to fill the space before somebody else asks. I'm sorry, I never told you that I'll ask you so many questions, but so, one of the things that is very clear from interacting with you is that you have excellent communication skills. And of course, your skills have obviously improved over time based on the many experiences that you have collected. But if you were to sort of, give advice to students here, from my experience with the students over the last couple of months, I realized that many of them need to sort of, improve their communication skills. So, आपकी जिंदगी में over the years, what did you do for you to come to this level? As far as the communication skills are concerned.
So communication skills come in various ways. You should be good in written communication, also in verbal communication, and also in body language or presentation communication, right? So all three things need to be developed in order to make sure that you are a good communicator, because you will use one of these three forms to be in front of anyone, right? A client, or your friend, or your interviewer, or anybody that you interact with, right? It's very important to first of all think through uh, at every communication parameter or mechanism that you're using, how you go forward and take it, right? For example, written communication. When you write an email, right, that person is going to read it and interpret it in his own way. So you need to write in such a way that this person does not misinterpret it. That should be your first thought, right? Secondly is you need to write a whole communication. A whole communication means that there should not be any kind of loophole in that communication that lead to a lot of back and forth, right? So a whole communication is kind of going forward and detailing it out to the level that any person, any layman who doesn't even understand this particular process or any particular thing that you're talking about gets it. Because that's where you are going to be very effective in communicating with executives. Those are the key decision makers. So when you're writing something to an executive, you need to dummy it down to such a level that it shows your expertise, but it also is very simple and effective for that person to read and understand and quickly act on it, right? That's about written communication. The verbal communication, when you're talking about it, I would say make it a practice to think before you speak, and go a little bit slow. I know I had this impediment in me that we as Indians sometimes speak very fast, right? We have a tendency to speak over as well, and we have a tendency to speak quite fast. So when you are interacting with somebody from a European background or for an American background or from Latin American background, you need to make sure that that person is not even is kind of understanding your content, but is also trying to interpret your accent, right? So you need to slow down. You need to slow down. You need to also make sure that wherever there would be confusion based on your accent, that's also taken care of. So that's about, verbal communication. You need to empathize with the other person who's listening to you, so that you can communicate very clearly, precisely, concisely, but at the same time in a way that that person doesn't have difficulty understanding it. And then comes presentation. Now, presentation is a whole another ball game, because and professor, you present every day, so you are the master in all of this. Definitely, I'm preaching to the choir, but for all the students, the way I tried to improve myself was to record myself. You do a presentation, you record yourself, and you see how you are doing. Oftentimes you don't know where your hands are going. Oftentimes you walk a lot in front of the projector screen, or just about anywhere, or oftentimes you are not making sufficient eye contact, right? Those are all very important when you're making a presentation. You might be talking about extremely important topic, but then if you do not have a body language that will attract attention, everybody will be put to sleep in 5 minutes, 5 minutes, maybe more. Right? So you need to work on that. So what I did was I recorded myself, and I self-critiqued it. I'll self-critique it, like, would I like to sit on this presentation and listen the entire 30 minutes? And the answer was no, until I refound myself in such a way that I can listen to myself for 30 minutes, or maybe 1 hour, right? So that is the help that you should do to yourself when you're presenting. At a junior level, when you are coming into an enterprise, they will most likely like you to present something, and if you turn out to be even self-critiquing yourself at that time, you are too late. So you need to work on it right now, and start self-critiquing, start making sure that you are making definite improvements on that. Some of the very important points for presentation is definitely make eye contact with each one of the people who are listening to you. Try to make eye contact. Secondly, you should definitely make everybody involved. Ask question. If you know the person's name, ask them a direct question, or bring up a topic that you both have done before. For example, like, they know that that person is from a particular background, and you're talking about that particular topic. Then you can just say about his name, saying, oh, you and I would relate to it because we both are from this background, or we both know this industry. So that way you get an engagement from that person, right? So you have to keep everybody engaged and entertained while you're doing the presentation. Thirdly, don't read your slides. If you have your slides out there and you're reading your slides, then anybody can do it. They can print it out, go back home and read it, right? They don't have to sit with you and you read that for you. No, then they are there because you have something more than those slides can show. So you never read your slides, never, right? And if you follow these three, you might be better than the top 50% at least who are presenting to a given audience.
That's wonderful advice, Nabeel. Just to take it a little bit further, what role did reading have in your communication skills? Like over your life, have you read a lot, and anything on that dimension?
Yeah, I read uh, like at least a book a day, and those were small books, like 60 pages. I never took a book which was pretty big for me to achieve. So that is one of the things, like, you should know what you're not. So I know that I cannot read a very big book, because I need to make sure that I get the answer, get the information, and persist it in my memory so that I can use it sometime later. So I would say read small books, right? precise books which give you at least the reading know-how that you're looking for, give you basic information about certain things. And then if you want to dig deeper, you go ahead and dig deeper. So that's one thing. I've read big books too, but then that was only during vacations. I love ebooks because in that case, I don't have to carry a lot of books. So you can just, read it while you're traveling or while you're just sitting at home doing nothing, right? So definitely reading plays a role.
Thank you very much, Nabeel. Yeah, so any other questions, comments? I think we should, try to, so Kamran writes, someone said books act like a filter. You don't remember it after some time, but what is it? But you come out as different personality after reading a book. Yes, absolutely right, Kamran. You are absolutely right. So I would encourage everybody to develop the habit of reading. Start with the newspaper, but read widely, both fiction as well as non-fiction, because that is the only way to be able to sort of improve your communication skills. इंसान को मेहनत करना पड़ता हर चीज के लिए. जैसा नबील साहब फरमा रहे थे, you have to record yourselves, actively work on stuff. Yes, Nabeel, you wanted to say something.
I would say wherever I read nonfiction, I always saw the movie that was kind of based on that novel or book. So that actually gives you the director's perspective, right? Try to do that. I know many people would have done it, but if you read a book first and then watch the movie, that'll give you a director's perspective, much more imaginative and informative. That also helps you how people transform content from books to screen.
That's a wonderful idea, actually. So again, see, remember this. What Nabeel Siddiqui said is, first read the book, then watch the movie. तो उसकी माने ये है कि double काम करो. And that is important, right? So the whole idea here is कि इंसान को invest करना पड़ता कोई भी चीज के लिए to improve. And you have to make the time so that you can do it. And this is not just, over the next 1 month or so. We are talking about life lessons here. You have around 50 years of productive life ahead of you. And you have to achieve, tremendous success, both for yourselves, for your family, for your community, for your country. And so it is important for you to sort of, take this seriously and think in terms of, improving yourselves. Anyway, I think we are almost towards the end. If somebody has some, thoughts to, some of the professors here, if they want to add something, or Dr. Razi wants to add something. Otherwise, we will sort of, try to finish this thing.
The only thing I would add is I just want to thank him for the wonderful presentation. I thought that I liked your idea, and we should probably adopt this, Dr. Ansari, of opening it up like at the end and asking the speaker to share personal insights, because you get so much out of that, just more than the presentation, because you're talking to successful people who have reached certain heights. And so understanding how they got there and some of the tricks always help. So I thought that was very enlightening, and we should adopt that for future presentations. I think it's an excellent idea. Keeping the presentation short, I thought this was really good technique rather than having slides and slides. I think you learn a lot more from that extemporaneous declaration of the problems they have encountered and the good things that they did. I think that was phenomenal. So thank you for sharing those personal insights. I found those very helpful as well.
Yes, thank you, Nabeel. I really, enjoyed this presentation and interaction. I think Professor Naushad wants to say something. So.
Yeah. Certainly, it was very nice what Mr. Nabeel said. Certainly, life is a learning process, and everybody must try to excel. And being multitasking, what he said, and the way, like, his journey was there. It is really very, very much for students to learn, and they must see that and excel, in life, and they can do things better. See, we as facilitators, we are giving them, and thanks to you and Mr. Nabeel and all these speakers, and they are getting a chance. They are getting a chance so that they can do better and excel themselves. And whatever the time you people are putting it up, we can take full use of it.
Inshallah. Great. So I guess with that we should end. Khalil, can you please, once again, thank you very much, Nabeel. Very enlightening session. I'm sure the students have benefited tremendously from this. So, does anybody want to end? Nauman, you want to end this thing?
Yeah, sure, sir. First of all, I would like to thank Nabeel sir for this such an insightful session. And apart from our topic that was about risk and compliance management, he also talked about life lessons, and that was, I think, more important for me and also for students, because these things generally don't people talk about. So I would like to thank Nabeel sir from behalf of whole Jamia, and I would also like to thank Citigroup, especially Asim sir, for moderating this whole event. Thank you, sir.
You're most welcome. Everybody is most welcome.
And we'd like to see you again, sir, for such sessions.
Sure.
Inshallah. Okay, great. So